Just want to kickstart this. Just wanted to check how many of you are involved in a startup kind of activity. You may just type in yes, me, or something in the chat box. Anyone involved in startup activity? Great. Vasant, thank you. No voice. Yes. You're not able to. Manisha, if you feel like saying something, you need to write and Sushma will unmute you. Radhika, thank you for responding. Yes. That's great. And then how many of you involved in any form of B2B business? Need not necessarily be startup. It could be an SME. You could be part of larger organization. Yes, Vasant. B2B. Our focus is today's webinar will focus on the B2B side of sales conversations. Great. Rajni, Santosh, thank you. Thank you. Sagar, appreciate it. Thank you. Great. Good. That's giving me a little bit of sense.
Yeah. Shall we start, sir?
Yes, we shall. Gurav, thank you for joining. I'm seeing you are already there. Appreciate your presence. Thank you, Gurav. Yes, Sushma, over to you.
Thank you, Vikas. Yeah, I can see. I think 28 attendees. I think let's start the session today. Yeah, thank you all for joining the session today, and good afternoon, everyone. And we have, as you all know, we have with us our alumni speaker, Mr. Vikas. He is an alumnus of EGMP 10 batch. And let me give you a brief introduction of our speaker today. Just give me a second. Yeah. Vikas, he comes with 25 plus years of experience in B2B sales and B2B sales transformation consulting in diverse markets. And he'll unpack various aspects of sales conversations that can sharply improve your ability to retain customer attention and win more businesses. Vikas has worked closely with a wide range of customers from startups and SMEs to international corporations. With startups, he helps them lay out insight-based market engagement plans. For SMEs, he redesigns all aspects of sales conversations. And for large corporations, he addresses skill and process improvement initiatives in the area of sales, pre-sales, and proposal writing. And yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention, he's a founder and CEO of his own Bumblebee Consulting. I hope I pronounced it right.
Yeah, that's all right. Bumblebee.consulting. That's also the domain name, Bumblebee.
Yes.
Thank you.
And yeah, as you know, the topic of today's session is overcoming sales conversation dissonance. And Vikas will be he'll be focusing on 3 factors that sharply increase the quality of your engagements and help you with more business. And yeah, here he'll be focused, the session will also learn to recognize and avoid the 3 conversational pitfalls that fail to create engagement, enthusiasm, and interest. This is the takeaways of the session. Yeah, and the flow of the session is like, Sir Vikas will be delivering the talk, and while in the middle, if you are having any kind of a questions, you can type in chat window. I'll be closely monitoring. If you need not wait till the end. If you get immediately, you can type in. I'll be monitoring it. And yeah. Thank you again for taking your time on the Thursday evening and joining the session. Welcome you all, and yeah, thanks Vikas for joining. A warm welcome to you as well. Yeah, over to you. Yeah, over to you, Vikas. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for that introduction and setting this whole thing up, Sushma. And welcome once again, all participants. Really delighted all of you could make it for today's session. So without much ado, we will get started. And before we begin, I just want to share with you what Bumblebee really stands for in my context and why I chose the name Bumblebee for my consulting organization. Science says that based on the size of the wings and the weight and the size of the body, the bumblebee should not be able to fly. but the Bumblebee still flies, and Bumblebee goes about its daily business, and it just enjoys its life from going from one flower to another, picking up nectar from one flower to another, and that's how the Bumblebee lives. And for me, the sales organization or the sales department of a company should adopt the mindset of a Bumblebee. Basically, what it really means is that it should be able to carry the weight of the organization, irrespective of the challenges and difficulties that exist inside the organization. And periodically, we all know that challenges come and go, difficulties come and go, but we still need to go out there, sell something, and once we are able to sell something, only then the organization can really function. So Peter Drucker said something to the effect that nothing really happens until somebody goes out there and sells something, and everyone in the organization can stay at home if nothing is sold, right? Be it the VP of operations, be it the receptionist, anyone can just literally stay at home if nothing is sold. So keeping that in mind, I gave the name of my organization Bumblebee.consulting, and today you are here. We'll go through a webinar where I speak about 3 different concepts to improve sales conversation and sales engagements. I'll follow this up with a small, very activity-centric workshop, a 3-hour workshop. And then the workshop will be worksheets driven. So that will be followed up with a coaching session, a review of those activities done in the workshop. And finally, if you want, you could also engage with me one-on-one for deeper consulting and transformation of issues and difficulties that you are experiencing in your organization. Before I proceed further, I just want to share, in what context you could probably look at this particular session. So if you're familiar with the concept of the inflection point, especially for introduction of new products or startups, or even for introduction of new features, if you're an SME or a larger organization and you bring a new feature, there is a period in time where you need to make the effort to demonstrate the performance of that particular feature or that product to either secure external funding or to secure internal budgets for further enhancing, developing that particular feature and capturing the market, capturing the audience. Post the inflection point, the pressure shifts, and the pressure shifts to performing with speed. So that's at that moment in time, you need to maximize the return on the capital invested. If you wish to remain the front runner and remain, continue to maximize the first mover advantage. So that's where you need to continue to be able to focus on delivering sales and revenue results, getting new customers in. And in both of these contexts, today's conversation or today's presentation will be extremely helpful. That's what I believe. So let's move now into, the last part of this slide basically says that in order to achieve results in both these phases, you need to have consistent high quality engagement with your customers, and that's what will really unlock the flow of sales and revenue. So let's get straight into the main content of the presentation today. There are 3 dissonances I'm going to speak, and as I keep going through the presentation, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat box, and after I complete each of the dissonances, my thoughts on each of the dissonances, I will pause and let all of you either share your thoughts, whether you resonate with what I have said or not, or you can at that point also ask me questions related to that dissonance or that topic that I've just spoken. So I don't want to make it a long monologue from start to end, and we'll take these short breaks for some interaction so that I get a sense as well of what kind of questions and thoughts are there, and then I know how to make it more valuable and useful to all the attendees on the session today. So having said that, let's start. The first dissonance I would like to share, and this is the common, I would not say mistake, but common pitfall in sales conversation that sales professionals make is the way they convey the benefit to the customer. What's in it for the customer? It sounds simple, maybe even simplistic, but bear with me. There are some ideas here which a number of people I have spoken to about have shared with me, saying that yes, that's an interesting perspective. So please bear with me, and let's just go through a few more thoughts. Before I go further, I would like to just qualify the definition of these three things so that we get aligned. What it means: feature, advantages, and benefits. These are three things which are extremely important in sales conversation, or whenever we talk about how to approach sales. I define features as something that's completely objective, which is descriptive. So it describes the object, the tool, the platform, the software, the materials, the profile, the certification, the content. It describes all these things. The feature by itself has no emotional adjectives attached to it. So things like long lasting, beautiful looking, deeply researched, so on and so forth. We'll not say this is feature. This is an interpretation, or this is the way probably the salesperson is looking at his or her feature. Advantage, on the other hand, is when the seller, the salesperson, perceives that the feature will have a positive impact or a positive change experience on the buyer. It is the seller's view. And benefit is the buyer's view, where the buyer perceives that that feature will have a positive impact or a positive change experience. So keep this at the back of your mind. It's extremely important we understand these three differences as we will keep talking about how to present benefits or how to engage customers with benefits. I think the first question that naturally comes to our mind when we talk of features and benefits is, when does a buyer perceive a feature as a benefit? I'm just taking a pause to let you think about it. When does the buyer perceive a feature as a benefit? The first criteria is that the buyer must have had a pain experience, an unhappiness, a frustration, an unease, a discomfort. And that pain, unhappiness, frustration, or discomfort helps him correlate to how the feature will help him change his experience. Okay, I'm just getting a message that audio quality is bad. Sushma, is it clear for you?
Yeah, it's clear for me. I want to check with other participants if facing any issues. It's very clear at my end.
Okay. Anyone else experiencing? It's good. Okay, it's good.
If he has joined through phone or something, he can use earphones. I don't know who is. I think some new.
Most people are saying it's good and clear now as well. So we'll continue. If it gets bad, please raise your hand once again. Okay. So what I was saying here is, I was requesting to annotate. Okay. Let's see, Sagar. You wanted to annotate something. Let's see if that's an engagement. Okay, allowed to annotate. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with this tool. So we'll hold the annotation part. Sagar, bring that up as a question in due course. So the point I was trying to make here is that when does a buyer perceive a feature as a benefit? The first part of it is that there has to be a pain experience, and that pain experience helps the buyer correlate to the feature, and that helps the buyer to intuitively perceive the utility of that feature. Or let me put it like this: the buyer should reach a point in understanding the feature such that he is intuitively be able to perceive the correlation chain, and that is when the buyer is motivated and excited to buy that particular product or feature. And I'll try and elaborate these thoughts in context of the cycle. And here I have created some features of this cycle on my own to help create a conversation and make the point I'm trying to make here. Okay, so this particular cycle has 5 special features. One's about the wide body tires where the grips are very strong. The second one is about its shock absorbers. Third one's about the battery that it supports, and fourth is about the spokes made out of carbon steel, and fifth is about its sturdiness. So as you think about these features and you read that feature text, I'm just going to also throw in a question so that you can keep the question at the back of your mind while you're reading this list of features. What do these features mean to you? As a buyer, do each one of them appeal to you? As you keep reading, do each one of them appeal to you? How will they influence your purchase decision? Keep in mind feature 1 and 2 for now. We will take a deeper dive in feature 1 and 2 in a while. But more importantly, is feature 2 adequately expressed? Shock absorbers with SFRD technology? Keep this in your mind. We'll proceed and then we'll come back and discuss this a bit more. In any business conversation, these 2 aspects are constant: the feature and the advantage. So when you're presenting this feature in your mind as a seller, you have an understanding of what advantage it is supposed to present to the buyer. That's constant. But what impacts the engagement, the flow, the outcome, ability to hold the listener's attention is this one word: perceived benefit. Is the buyer perceiving that particular feature and its utility as a benefit? In this case, the wide body tires with grips up to 14 mm made out of grade RI-73 rubber from Indonesia. This is of value, and it will be seen as a benefit by the buyer if the buyer is going to use the cycle regularly in places where the chances of skidding are frequent. And the buyer is not going to be using it there, for him it doesn't present as a benefit. I think this is basic concept. We relate to this very well. I'm just building my case by throwing some of these thoughts and slides so that as I move forward, you'll be able to relate to why I brought some of these thoughts, some of these basic thoughts into my presentation. Now let's extrapolate this thought and put it in a 2x2 grid. What did we say are the 2 components involved here? One is the relevant pain experience. We'll plot that on the x-axis, and something I call the intuitivity quotient. The buyer's ability of abstract thinking, visualization, and the ability to intuitively perceive the utility of the feature. The average journey of the buyers in the market is in this direction. So there are, not all buyers, even though they experience pain and frustration, have an ability, a high intuitive ability. Buyers need to experience the pain and the frustration again and again over a period of time, and gradually they are able to relate to how that feature is really going to help them and what's the kind of benefit they will really draw from that particular feature or product. Now, let's just take a few examples quickly. If you think of cloud computing or Internet of Things, think of cloud computing, let's say 6 years ago. Where was that journey? How many people were ready to buy with minimal sales conversation? how many people who needed a lot more persuasion are ready to buy with minimal sales conversation today? Similarly with Internet of Things or any other technology driven product that we are experiencing in today's market. Or if you're a running fan like me, I have something called an overpronation running style. So what I really need for enjoying my run regularly day after day is a pronation control shoe. Now, when I first went into the Nike showroom here in Bangalore, almost 6-7 years back, I had no clue and no understanding of what pronation control shoes were. I had to go and do YouTube research, talk to friends who had used pronation control shoes. They were twice as much more expensive. I did not buy them immediately. I kept on feeling the discomfort of running in my regular shoes. Basically, I would run and then I would take 3, 4, or 5 days at times to recover from the stiff calf muscles, the ankle tendons, the knees. They'll become really stiff and sore. It'll take me 4 or 5 days to recover. But today, the market has reached a point where it's very easy to explain to people the value and the meaning of pronation control shoes. So this is what I was wanting to convey as when you're talking about features and benefits, it's about bringing out the relevant, relating the relevant pain experience and the intuitivity quotient of the buyer and positioning your conversation in a mix of these two parameters. Let's keep that idea on the side for a minute, and I want to talk to you about 5 different levels or styles of articulating salespeople typically have, or not necessarily 5, but it's a range that I'm bringing, and I have broken them down into 5 articulation approaches. And once I have shared this, we will blend the previous concept and this one together. So on one extreme, we can have a sales conversation where we just relate the feature to the buyer. Right? You say wide body tires with grips up to 14 mm made of grade RI73 rubber from Indonesia. Depending on the buyer's level of pain experience and depending on the level of the buyer's understanding of these, it will trigger in the mind of the buyer whether this feature is useful for me or not. Right. So it starts there on as a basic expression of a feature communicated to the buyer. If you look at this, in the next level of articulation level 2, the salesperson could add something like, so that you do not skid and the tires last you long, bringing in a little bit of impact in the conversation as to what can happen if you don't use these tires, or what can happen if you use these tires. Moving on, in an articulation level 3, the salesperson could say something like, so that you skid less even on loose gravel, sandy roads and mountain trails. And they also last many more rides on rough surfaces. Can you see now it's becoming clearer and clearer to the buyer on the true value of this particular feature? Here's the 4th one. Wide body tires with grips up to 14 mm made of grade RI73 rubber from Indonesia, so that you skid less even on loose gravel, sandy trails. Your rides are more enjoyable, less frustrating, as you can keep cycling for long stretches without slipping and without the need to dismount and walk. And they also last many more rides on rough surfaces, and you need not worry about visiting the cycle stores frequently. This is even more articulate, completely clear. It has the emotional aspect also in it. Okay, so your rides are more enjoyable, less frustrating. It has the emotional aspect attached as well, so that the buyer can relate to the feature even from an emotional point of view. And here's the 5th one, where you will see completely different in the flow of its articulation. It doesn't start with a feature. In fact, it starts with a different sentence, a different phrase. When you are out there cycling through the sandy woods or the mountain trail with lots of gravel, your rides will be more enjoyable and less frustrating. You can keep cycling for long stretches without the worry of slipping and without the need to dismount and walk, as our wide body tires have 14 mm grips. I'm just taking a pause so that you can digest the difference in 4 and 5 especially. And I'll come back and elaborate this couple of slides later. So moving on, if I integrate these two ideas, bring them up together on this 2x2 grid, here is what typically happens in the market. Most salespeople are excited about their feature. Entrepreneurs, salespeople, businessmen are so excited about their feature, that new product, that they want to engage with those people who can relate to it, and they want to convey the value of that in minimum sentences, in minimum phrases, right? And as the intuitivity quotient goes up, that is where salespeople get the excitement of talking at a level 4 or a level 5. But what should it actually be? In my opinion, it should be the other way around. So when new features are introduced, you need to have a detailed articulation. You need to convey the value of that product or feature to your buyers by describing, by being more descriptive. Only when people have, demonstrate that higher level of intuitivity quotient, that you can start reducing the length of your conversation and presentation. Right. I'm just going back to those same examples. Now try and correlate yourself to any of these products or features in these products that were being, that were being sold, let's say 5 or 6 years back. What was the nature of some of those articulations? Did it match this? Was it a lot more 1 and 2 towards the bottom left corner? Okay, so that's an important perspective of what type of articulation we use at what stage of the product that has been introduced, and how do we articulate that to what kind of a buyer, and what kind of a buyer is part of my Dissonance 3. So I'll come back in when I'm talking of Dissonance 3 and merge this idea with Dissonance 3 again. Okay, so I promised to you we'll look at what's the real difference in the way articulation 5 is presented, is constructed in its way of presenting to the listener. So you can see the articulation 5 begins with the context in mind. The context creates an opportunity for the person to visualize himself or herself in the midst of that situation where the feature will become useful and handy. So when you are out there cycling through sandy woods, so again, see the adjectives are coming in here, sandy woods or the mountain trail with lots of gravel, you're creating that scenario in the mind of the buyer. And then you're bringing in both types of benefits, the emotional benefit and the practical benefit. Your rides will be more enjoyable, frustrating. These are what emotional words, and the emotional benefits, more enjoyable, less frustrating. You can keep cycling for long stretches without worrying or slipping, and without the need to dismount and walk. See, that's the practical benefit. You don't need to dismount and walk. When you're going out there cycling, no cyclist or no passionate cyclist would like to dismount and push the cycle on these kind of roads, right? And then you're introducing the feature at the end. So see, as a buyer, my first, my psychological state is already visualizing myself in that situation. I'm relating to the emotional benefit, what kind of feeling I will get. I'm relating to the practical benefit, and then I'm saying, okay, these are my benefits. I'm able to digest, imbibe the value of the feature a lot more faster, a lot more deeper. I'm just taking a pause here, and I'm bringing this this slide back so that you can now correlate why articulation type 5 is extremely important at the early part of the introduction of your product or your service or your feature of that particular product. We'll quickly move on. We'll just take a peek into the second feature here, shock absorbers with SFRD technology. Let's look at 3 articulations here. The first one is shock absorbers with SFRD technology, sensitive frequent response dampeners. I'm just expanding on the word SFRD. Or I could, as a salesperson, throw in a little more description here in terms of its value so that the rides are smoother and your purchase is environment friendly, as SFRD technology does not use oil. Or if you are completely new to the concept of SFRD technology as a buyer, you may be more convinced if you could, if you would hear something of this nature from the salesperson. So let me just read it out. When you are out there cycling through rough mountain terrains and bumpy nature trails, your rides will be more comfortable for long stretches, as all the numerous shocks transmitted from the continuous uneven surface would be absorbed by the highly sensitive frequency response dampeners. In addition, you could change or discard the shock absorber without feeling guilty about the negative impact you would be making on the environment, as the dampeners do not use any oil like hydraulic shock absorbers do. Okay, I thought I saw somebody requesting for annotation. Could you remove the annotation? It is a little distracting. Okay, I'm not sure. Is there? Is it this box you are referring to?
I think yes. I think now it's fine. I think yes. I think people are referring to that.
Okay. Okay. No, thanks for bringing that up. Okay. So I hope these 2 examples have given you a perspective of the value of articulating effectively, led first by the context, followed by the emotional practical benefits, and then closed with the actual feature that you are trying to convey. Let's take a quick poll at this point, and I just read out the question and I trigger the poll for you to answer. My question here is, in your sales engagement, where do you think you stand in your journey from A to B? A is, most often my engagements are feature focused. I rarely think of consciously applying the context benefit feature approach. And B is, I am consistently and naturally able to apply the context benefit feature approach and evoke a strong connect with the buyers. So if you think of yourself in a range of 6 scores, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, where do you think you stand? And I'm just going to trigger the poll for you to answer that. Okay. Is the poll visible? Yes. It's visible.
Yeah, it's visible. Yeah.
Great. I'll just give all of you a few more seconds. We have answers coming in. A lot of good responses here. Okay, thank you, and I'm just going to close the poll now. Okay, and let me just share. Are the results visible? Can anyone respond and see the results of the group?
Not yet, I think. Can you just? It says 29 of 57 have responded. That's the only thing I can see.
Okay.
Poll results.
Poll results.
Yeah.
That said apply. Okay, I'll just read out the results. So we have 2 participants who say they are at 1, 4 at stage 2, 11 at stage 3, 8 at stage 4, 3 at stage 5, and 1 at stage 6. Thank you all for responding to this, and we'll just move on. And I'm almost at the end. If you have any questions, just hold your thought. My next slide is a summary. So we finish that, and then I'll open the forum for any questions. Okay, so I'm now summarizing what I've been trying to convey as Dissonance 1 and how to approach with this challenge and overcome Dissonance 1. So the common approach we saw here is that when features are newly introduced or product is newly prepared for the market, buyers are in quadrant C here. Technology-driven founders and sales engineers focus their conversations on features, innovations, the excitement areas. Right? What is the customer looking for? What's in it for me? How is this feature, this innovation really going to be useful to me? As salesperson, what do you need to do? You need to focus on the benefit to the customer by triggering the perception. He said by triggering the perception. You need to lead the buyer to become intuitively clear. The feeling in the buyer should be, I can see how this will really help me. You need to be able to reach that point of conversation with the buyer. You need to use context describing terms such as imagine if you are doing something like this, or if you are in this area or doing this kind of an activity, so on and so forth. When your team is in the middle of this, this tool will help you do this, and this, so on and so forth. And then remember to link the benefit to an emotion. That's extremely important because buyers buy based on emotions, and then they justify that purchase out of reason and logic. In one sentence, overcoming Dissonance 1 is about helping buyers intuitively link features to benefits, making your conversations and presentations benefit-led and not feature-led. I'll take a pause here and invite any questions, comments, thoughts any of you would like to share at this point. Okay. Just opening the chat window here. I have a comment from Samir. If it's a product we are selling, trial can achieve this. Yes, just a thought. What's your opinion? Absolutely. Trial. So freemium as an approach is intended to exactly overcome this. People gain the experience, and very often, if you are in a kind of close to B2C kind of market, it's not exactly, or you have a freemium kind of product, or a product that is also meant for individuals as well as groups. So a lot of times you see in the online product of meant for individuals is given out as free. Right, that was the chat box. So many times the individual license is given out as free. Once people get used to it, and once they move into a group level, they need to start paying for it. So you're absolutely right, Samir. Providing some sort of experience, user experience, hands-on experience, demos, POCs, they all help you achieve help you achieve creating that clarity in the mind of the buyer and making him intuitively feel and confident that this product or feature will solve that particular need or pain or problem they are experiencing. Yes. Thanks. How can we translate this into email marketing to ensure more leads for sales teams? Okay, that's a slightly different ballgame. I'll leave you with just one or two thoughts there. Remember that the challenge about email marketing is that not all buyers are ready at the time that the email reaches them. Right? They are not ready for various reasons. They may be perceptually ready for that. They may be ready from a point of view of pain or unhappiness. But they may not be ready from a point of view of finance. Or they may have the finance but not be ready from other perspectives. They may not have scaled as yet. So the challenge about lead generation comes from that fact that you really have very little idea about the readiness of the buyer. And therefore, they say you need to have an engagement which some principles call the 7 to 10 touch approach for that particular buyer set. You need to be able to reach out to that person 7 times, 8 times, 9 times, 10 times, and then see if that person has become ready to engage you for the rest of the buying journey. If that person is not, you let that person be aside and you move forward looking for other people who are probably readier at that point in time. But you can still use these principles in email marketing, conveying the when you structure your mails, convey it in such that you create the context, the emotion, and then bring the feature part of it at the bottom. That can certainly help. Okay, moving on. Sorry, So Vivek writes, we are healthcare AI company. How to solve the problem of radiologists? How to solve the problem of radiologists are the user of the product, but management is management is always the buyer and the decision maker there. Yeah. How to convey the value for radiologists? It's a must-have, but management is good to have. Yes, good question. So, what does management value here? Management values the economic side. So you need to convert the technical benefit into simple to understand value proposition, the economic benefit. And the other thing you need to keep in mind is management's more worried about the short and long-term risks. And risks not only involves things like the product life or the product quality, but it also involves various aspects such as is the company going to be there? Will the servicing happen? What about product upgrades? Various other perspectives. So management, to convince management, remember 2 important aspects other than the product itself: value for money and risk mitigation. Okay, I think we're kind of running out of time here, but I'll still take one more question that I see here. We are a service company that is into productize its offering. Work is in progress to change the perception. The difficult part is to get a meeting or a confluence with the buyer, especially decision maker. Please share a few insights on this. Interesting. So B2B sales, the challenge in B2B sales obviously comes from the fact that multiple people are involved in making a decision. Like we just saw, the radiologist in the previous case, the radiologist is the user, may be very excited about the product and technology, but management may have other concerns when it comes to making a buying decision. So in this case, what you need to focus on is try and understand who in the management is not yet willing to meet you. One. So who in that buying set of people? One. Once you have an idea of that, you need to be able to reach out to that person by conveying these 2 things. The pain, what pain you are experiencing, I understand that. The pain, the problem, and how you have solved that pain or problem for somebody else. You need to create that credibility and confidence in that person. You need to reach out to that person with a simple message, a simple story, and warm him up. And again, it may not happen in one reach. As I said, you may need 5, 6, 7, 8 different reaches. So remember, think of the management as an organizational chart, and different people in the organization have different focuses and different problems. Your message cannot be the same for everyone. Your articulation approach cannot be the same for everyone. And just bear with me. Dissonance 3 talks exactly about this. So bear with me. Bring it up again if ideas I present in Dissonance 3 do not really cover or answer your thoughts, answer your question in complete. Okay. Any strategies for domain names? Okay, we'll take this up. Puneet Patel, we'll take this up offline. Please feel free to write to me. I'm just keeping in mind, being mindful of the time. Already running a little late here. My apologies, but I'm more than happy to engage with anyone who would like to reach out to me for a more detailed conversation. But thank you, really appreciate the involvement and the questions you've asked. This is being really exciting for me as well. So with that, I'd like to move on and focus on Dissonance 2 now. Dissonance 2 is getting trapped in the forward-moving pace, the tone of urgency set by the buyer. And I think anyone who has been in sales long enough, when I say long enough, just even 2 years or even less than 2 years, you have experienced this. The customer brings in a certain pace, it throws our emotions out of gear. We feel just, we go through this daunting experience. How to remain calm and in control and not get swayed by the pace set by the customer. The anxiety arises if I don't keep the pace with the customer. Customer will think we are not capable. We are not interested, we'll lose the opportunity. And we've all seen that, especially startups and when new features are there, that's where a lot of the money is, and that's where the challenge of proving the value and benefit is highest, right? So, here are my thoughts on how to avoid getting trapped in this forward-moving pace or the tone of urgency set by the buyer. The market's been changing over the last few years. The buyer's interaction with the sellers' interaction with the buyers are kicking in later and later into the sales process. Number of face-to-face interactions, in-person interactions with the buyer is coming down. Attention span of buyers are dropping. Your window of opportunity to influence somebody is also becoming smaller and smaller. Right? In the middle of these changes, what's really happening is that the buyer is coming in at this point midway into your sales process steps and pushing you forward from here. And if you're going to respond to that urgency, what's going to happen? Poor quality of engagement. The demo will not resonate with the buyer because you have not sought exactly the details, the inputs needed to understand the buyer's situation. Your value proposition will not be strong, accurate, and focused and resonate with the buyer either. Final impact, it will become ineffective when you're getting into negotiations. And if at all you win that deal, it will be on extremely low margins. So, how can we overcome this disease? The answer to that is asking effective questions. And I've underlined the word there, effective. What does asking effective questions do? 3 things. It establishes your knowledge and credibility. It gives you context-specific insight into the buyer's situation. And it gives you insight into the scale or the depth of the problem the buyer is experiencing right now. So think of yourself going to a doctor for something that's been really troubling you. How do you establish the doctor's credibility? By the kind of questions he or she asks to diagnose your situation. Right? That's extremely important. Those questions, what does it provide to the doctor? It gives the doctor an understanding of your context. Are you in a night shift activity? Is that having an impact on you? Right? Do you run a lot? What kind of physical stress you are in? Okay, things like that. What's the context? And then what's the depth of the problem? How much is it hurting? And where all it is hurting? So how do you ask these questions? I categorize these questions into two. One are context discovery questions and the other are impact discovery questions. The context discovery questions are typically open, descriptive. They help the buyer talk. But we all encounter those kind of people in the organizations who don't like to talk or who talk very little and give very little information. How do you deal with those kind of people? In such situations, remember, if you have a good understanding of the product, the industry, the kind of pains and problems most customers face, you could rephrase that question by approaching it something like this, like, when you are in a situation like this, do you experience A, B, or C? Typically what that does is people who like to talk less and are not as fluent and confident about being articulate and descriptive, they will tend to give you a hint in which area that particular problem exists, A, B, or C, and then that opens doors for the conversations. So remember, descriptive context discovery questions can either be open, descriptive, or you could create an approach which is based on narrowing down the options and providing the options to the listener so that he or she chooses, and then it opens the conversation to the next level. Impact discovery is very numerical oriented. You need to be able to ask the buyer and the different people in the buying organization specific questions that give you a numerical understanding of what's really happening inside the organization. So how often does this happen? How many units, hours are lost? How long does it take, etc., etc. Once you have those specific numbers really help you understand where the pain is deepest and how to tailor your conversation so that you can create a sound value proposition and engagement with the buyer. That's exactly what I'm going to share in my next slide. If there are two different types of customers wanting the same product, I'm visualizing here that the girl is going to move to Bangalore and need a cycle, and that scooty will not work for her. So you can see for him what's really important is that he's an adventure freak, and going out cycling is in the mountains is a way of sweating it out and bragging. But for her, cycling is a means of comfortable commute and also addresses a green inclination. So if you don't ask the questions, if you don't go deep enough into the context and the specifics, how are you going to position your product? Which features are you really going to present? My list shows only 5, but there are many technology products which will have 18, 20, 25 different components in it. Which of those should you really present and engage the customer? Customer doesn't have neither the patience or the mental ability to grasp all 25 and evaluate it. You have to be the one doing that for the customer, right? So asking questions helps you improve your ability to position and connect, create a proper connect with the customer, and also convey a strong value proposition, why you, why your product, etc. So in summary, effective questions is what takes you back in the sales process, backwards in the sales process, improves your qualification, improves your ability to uncover customer issues and position your product, demonstrate and prove in relevance to that context, manage the risk perception that the customer may have, and then negotiate and close for better revenue, for better deals. That was broadly my thoughts on the second dissonance, and I'm coming up once again with a poll: improve our ability to prove through demos, samples, etc., and design an appropriate solution. My question really is, how challenging do you find it to articulate questions that give you insightful details? And I'm going to just trigger the poll once again now. Sushma, can you confirm the poll has started?
One second, sir.
Okay.
No, I can't see the poll. Okay. No, even participants are saying.
Okay, just 1 second. Edit question. Open poll. Yes. I think it has come up now.
Yeah, it has come.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Great. Thank you. Shall I close the poll? Still see a few people. Okay, 21. Okay, I'm closing in 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Okay, 30 out of 48 respondents, and 1 second, the WebEx is saving the poll. Waiting for participants to submit responses, time remaining. Okay, so again we have one participant at not challenging, 4 at 2, 8 and 7 at 3 and 4. Again, very much like a bell curve there. 5 at number 5, and we have 3 who are saying pretty challenging. This is articulating questions is difficult. Right. So again, please feel free to engage with me. I'm happy to do some mentoring and guidance for anyone who reaches out after the session. Okay. Let's carry on here. So I'm going to summarize what I have just shared about overcoming dissonance 2. The common approach adopted by many sales professionals is, flow with the speed, the tone of urgency, the forward motion set by the customer. They do not examine the context and specifics that drive the need and the impact that has. It affects the accuracy of the solution, the revenue, and the profit. Now, what is the customer really looking for? Customer wants speed because they want a solution. 1. 2, they also want respect. They want respect because they want to feel that I have done my research, please respect my knowledge, although it may not be complete, adequate to make proper decisions, but that's what the customer also wants at that point in time. So how do you bridge this gap? By asking effective questions, you retain the customer's respect and enhance your own credibility. Context discovery questions and impact discovery questions are the 2 categories of questions you should be thinking in. The impact this has is more relevant demos, improved risk management, stronger position of negotiations as you reach towards the closure of the deal. And you're going to achieve better sales at high profitability. Those are my thoughts on overcoming dissonance 2. If I have to again summarize it in 1 sentence, lead your engagements with effective questions to uncover underlying context and impact. Even if this means going against the flow of the customer urgency momentarily. I'll take a pause here once again and invite comments, questions, and thoughts. If you feel like articulating something in voice, just let Sushma know, and she will open the mic for you to speak. Okay. Hi, Nidhi. Very useful, impressive session. Thank you. I have a question. Nidhi has a question. Yes, please, Nidhi.
I need to unmute Nidhi. One second, I'm just unmuting.
Sure.
Yeah, Nidhi, you can ask.
Question is, my dissonance at selling point happens because we are in a we are an innovative healthy snack company. So my dissonance happens where customer loses interest if it's a high engagement product where the value proposition is high. For example, if a customer has to spend 500 rupees to buy a particular product, he or she will spend more time to gather information. But the biggest challenge is attention span. So if we are trying to make a purchase, make a sell at say a supermarket, and there the timing is of essence, then how do we keep the customer engaged? You know, there's too much clutter right now.
Clutter, distraction, right. So the preparation for that must happen outside the supermarket, I would think, because once you're in front of the supermarket, you should create immediate recall. Should create recall value that this means this to me. This means this kind of a benefit to me. This means this kind of a value change in my life. It's not about trying to it's not about trying to go through that logic and thinking process there, reading the things on that packaging and trying to interpret it. You have to do this offline through websites, through videos, small videos, through promotion somewhere in apartment buildings or large gathering areas. That's where you embed the value of it and go through that. The approach I would use is, again, embed the context strongly, embed the emotion related to it strongly, and then bring out the feature. So if it is health related to, let's say, sugar or diabetes, then you describe the context through facts and issues that are that exist. You trigger the emotion around it by bringing out the pains and problems that can happen over a period of time, and the statistics related to different people that are going through those kind of pains and problems and the unhappiness they face, and then you bring the feature of your product and how that prevents or that continues to keep it's still sweet, but it's not it doesn't add to the diabetes type of problem there. So I would go with something like that, very generic explanation. We can have a longer discussion of this.
Yes, sure. Yes, thank you.
Vikas, I think we are getting this thing. I think can we take question at the end?
Okay, sure.
We have one from Arun. Sorry, Arun. I think we will take it.
Yeah. Okay, right.
Are you want to take, sir? Because
yeah. I think so. Those who schedule their time, let them get a full sense of the webinar. Yes. Arun, I'm happy to stay back. Happy to stay back and answer all questions there. Thank you. Sorry, I'm running late. Dissonance 3 is again not very long. I should finish that quite fast. But please hang in there if you're enjoying this. I'm enjoying the session today. Thank you. I'm beginning with a poll this time. We are all cricket lovers. My question here is, considering these 3 different formats of the game, would you say that the strategies, skills, and aptitude needed are identical, somewhat similar, quite different, definitely different? Okay, and I am going to open the poll now.
Yes, I can see the poll question. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Okay, 5 more seconds. This is an easy question. So we close in 3, 2, 1, and we close the poll. Okay. Some participants still submitting. WebEx by itself is giving participants a little more time there. Yes, we can quite clearly see that most of the responses are in D and C. So we have 10 responses in D and 7 in C, and some 5 participants have said have given the answer D. No one says it's identical. And now let's see why I asked this question. Okay. Dissonance 3, my thoughts really are, this is where a lot of sales, especially sales organizations, sales individuals who have a salesy style, or entrepreneurs, first generation entrepreneurs, or the first time product entrepreneurs as well, or even entrepreneurs by family and lineage. For them, this is not so much of a dissonance. They understand the value of this. But mostly, if you come to a point where it's an organizational approach to selling, I have seen that such sales professionals use the same or very similar sales scripts on all buyer types. And that doesn't really work. So let's go through my thoughts here. And I'll use this concept of diffusion of innovation by Mr. Rogers to convey my thoughts in more detail. So, Rogers made this bell curve to convey how the market adopted new ideas over a period of time. This is the kind of bell curve distribution he suggested broadly exists for adoption of new ideas in any situation, in any market. So he said there are 5 categories of people: innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards. My question here is, will the same sales script apply in each of these categories? The answer clearly is no. Why? There are personality parameters and there are economic variables. Let's look at what I mean by personality parameters here. Innovators, what's their personality? The personality type comes from being venturesome, rash, daring, risky. Stability, very low priority for them. Highly perceptive people, quick to connect the dots. These are some of the characteristics of the innovators. The early majority, on the other hand, are people who are cautious, measured. They want to be sure of what they are doing. What do they value? They value stability, but they also value being contemporary. So they seek success stories because they want to mitigate the risk. How do you mitigate? How do you continue to remain stable if you are too risky as a person? So if you value stability, basically you are going to approach all purchases with an intent of risk mitigation as well. The early adopters are somewhere in between, right? They are a balance of risk and stability. What's important to them? Respect. They want to be seen as opinion leaders, as credible opinion leaders. Now, their self-esteem comes from being ahead of the curve, but they are not as venturesome as the innovators. So they'll wait a bit. They'll want to know some success story. They'll want to know something. They want a little more assurance than the innovators. Innovators will typically buy based on the personality of the salesperson, the confidence the salesperson feels. Early adopters want to see a little more proof. Early majority want to see a lot more proof. Yeah. And late majority, very skeptical, high on economic consideration. Numerical value proposition has very little influence or impact in their considerations. So these are 3 categories we really want to focus on. Let me try and elaborate now my thoughts on the economic variable. So the situation in the market is such that you will always have some innovators buying later in time because they don't have the money. Or when I say innovators, people who are venturesome with the innovative mindset approach. And there are some people with the early majority kind of mindset, that type of personality, who are buying earlier and earlier because they have the money and they want to, they need to do something at that point where they are for making a change. They will make a buying decision early. So what this really means is that if you'll have an early majority type of person buying early and an innovator or a venturesome type of personality buying later, your sales skill, your conversational ability should be such that you should be able to adopt yourself based on what you are observing, listening to the buyer in the buyer conversation, buyer-seller conversation. There's a lot of data here. I don't want you to read everything, but I just want to draw your attention to a few things here. Right. So those buyers in the majority side or the later part of the market, what do they focus on? They are high on social and product validation. So it's a tried and tested testimonials, success stories. They get easily influenced by celebrities, etc. Right? Process oriented. Multiple codes, feature to feature comparison. What do they brag about? Value for money. I negotiated this hard. I got a great deal. You see their language. What do they really brag about? On this side, early adopters, what will they brag about? The first mover. I'm ahead of the masses. It's okay, I paid a little more. But this is really good. I like it. It's saving me so much time. It's doing this for me, doing that for me. Right? You can see that this is a large corporation. So if you have a new product, new feature, trying to spend your time chasing big deals and large orders is kind of futile, right? It's your early adopters. People with the early adopter mindset is what you should be looking for, and you can see these early adopters are those who are willing to rearrange control factors in their organizations as soon as new product, new technology comes. The way the organization has to be, rearranged, chain of command, reporting structures, silos, anything that needs to be rearranged. It's the early adopters who have the mindset and willingness to rearrange those control factors fast. Larger organizations will always go what I call slow-mo, very risk averse, answerable to too many people. Right? Now I want to blend both the ideas from Dissonance 3 and the idea that I shared with you in Dissonance 1. Now you can clearly see innovators are up there with a little pain, frustration experience. Their intuitive quotient is so high, they're able to relate to what you are saying. Even with a few sentences, you need not have the articulation level 5 necessarily spoken out, articulated to those kind of individuals. And as you go along, you can see that it's the late majority guys need a lot more pain experience, frustration experience, and their intuitive quotient is low, so their ability to make decisions or buy in and adopt those new products and features is extremely slow. Why is this important, what I just showed you? It is because your profit zone is here. You sell to an innovator, you very rarely you will make a good profit because he will always want something that's slightly different from what you have done. You will spend time, technology trying to make it for him while your sales is stopped at that point in time, right? And he will buy it you have to give him at almost a break-even price or sometimes even at a loss, because your interest is creating a success story or a case study, so that you can take that success story and case study and feed it into the later market of early adopters and early majority who want to know about the success of your product or feature. And they will at that point be willing to give you some money that makes your product and business profitable. But if you're trying to sell to the late majority, that's a commodity business. It's very hard to make enough profits there. So can you now see how Dissonance 1 and Dissonance 3 are coming like together so that you can maximize your profit by ensuring that your communication is such that it meets the the appeal to the innovators, the early adopters, and the early majority, and you are able to make profits out of it still. I'm summarizing what I just said in terms of how to overcome dissonance 3. The common approach we see is people follow same or similar scripts on different buyers, and they create a disengagement. The buyer is disengaged, the seller is disengaged. The quality of conversation does not go such that the buyer may have the intent, interest, and capability to buy, but if the quality of conversation is not done properly, that disengagement just leads to loss of sale. Right? The organization is losing, and the other thing is that the organization is going to lose time and will not be able to maximize profits at this point in time. Competition will catch up fast. So how do you bridge the gap? You use customized sales tips based on well thought out personality factors. Focus on quality of engagement. Share information based on the personality type and role. Practice, review, rehearse for spontaneity and impact. This is the toughest part. We fail to practice. There are certain meetings I practice with colleagues, with friends before I go into them. Especially if it's a new product, something new that I have done that I want to present. And I do that, and that's phenomenally helpful. My spontaneity in front of the customer increases at that point in time. Again, my one sentence summary for overcoming dissonance 3. Focus on the quality of customer engagement by using customized scripts based on personality factors of the buyer and the buyer organization. Not just the buyer and his personality type, because he may not fit as the right person in the buying or that type of buying organization, and that dissonance also exists, right? The buyer may show a rhythm, but the buying organization may not show that rhythm. Or the other way around, the buyer organization is extremely interested in moving fast, and there are some buyers who are extremely cautious and too slow in the movement. Not easy, but definitely we become aware that these are parameters that influence sales conversations. We become open and receptive to molding our approach, keeping these 3 dissonances in mind. I'm sure the quality of your sales conversation, sales engagement will go up, and your ability to close and win more deals with more profit will also go up. That's really it, and thank you very much. My apologies for stretching this presentation beyond the promised time. Really sorry about that, but really enjoyed some of the conversation that's already happened. Any other questions that any of you may have at this point, please feel free to bring it up.
Because we have one question, I think it was asked earlier from Radhika. Can we take it? She asked, yeah, in consulting services where we have to collaboratively create a solution, it's not so straightforward to apply this. I think when you were discussing the second dissonance, right, during that time, she brought this. Right. What?
Okay. Yes, I'm just a little lost for words. Just 1 second. Thank you. I just want to let me just look at it here. Okay, let me ask that, Radhika, why do you think it's hard to ask questions when you're selling consulting, and what kind of consulting? I think that Sagar, the video recording will become available on behalf of but Radhika, I would want to come back to you and ask, can you elaborate why you think that the conversations, asking questions will not really apply in context of consultancy business? Radhika, are you there? Business of selling IT services, and we call calling back a response to an inbound inquiry with not much info about the need or the client. Can you help with any pointers? That's from Arun. I'm unable to see that specific question from Radhika. Can you read it out?
Yeah, 1 second. Yeah, in consulting services where we have to collaboratively create a solution, it's not so straightforward to apply this. I don't know whether during first dissonance or second dissonance she asked after that.
Okay, fine. Yes, that must be at the end of the first dissonance. Yes. Yes, so then, I mean, the idea of first dissonance is to get closer and create better quality of conversation with the prospect and the client. If you're already in a state of doing consultative solution development, in that case, I mean, you're already close to the client, the conversation is already flowing between the two of you. So what you need to take care is that when you are talking to the different people inside the organization about your product or service, that consultative engagement, the short presentations you make, the short documents you write, at that point also you can try and make your presentation or conversation benefit-led rather than feature-led. That will keep the engagement or the warmth, if I may say, or the quality of engagement is the right word there. Quality of engagement, the flow of thoughts from one another will be of much better quality. That's how I would look at it. The things I spoke about, the articulation level 5 in dissonance 1, that's a very often used to open conversation, create an impact such that the buyer starts relating to you, trusting you, and getting that feeling that you have an understanding of the emotional and practical issues that he or she experiences. So if you already bridge that gap, then there may be less likelihood of you having to use that approach. But my experience is that continuously living in a framework of benefit-led engagement with customers, whether it is at the start of an engagement or any part of the rest of the journey, is always good. Customers' trust and appreciation for you will be higher there. Those are my thoughts on that particular question. I want to come back to Arun's question here. If we are in the business of selling IT services and we are calling back as a response to an inbound inquiry with not much info about the need or the client, okay, can you help with any pointers? Very good question. We often end up in that. So if you're talking of something like responding to proposals, one strategy I have seen or some organizations use is that they say, okay, we really want to respond to this kind of a proposal. We think we can do it, but in order to make it meaningful, can you please give us an interview or a conversation with 2, 3, or these 2, 3, 4, or 5 people. Right, 5 may be too many, but 2 or 3 or 4 people. And very often customers don't say no to that. Right? They say, okay, if you want to make something relevant, let's provide some input, some information. That's one thought I have. Second, if you have very little access or customer gatekeepers are very strong and they don't let you get through to those kind of conversations, you need to base yourself on the closest alternative, which is parallel customer experience that you have in the same industry. So based on your experience with, let's say if you're talking to a pharma industry of a mid-size in a particular geography, like let's say a Mediterranean Europe, and the other customer is of a similar and your past experiences, your closest past experience is also mid-size European customer, let's say maybe not Mediterranean Europe, but maybe UK or Northern Europe, some country in Northern Europe. You draw your experience from that, relate to the core pain points that that customer particularly experienced or you help solve, and you build your proposal and engagement around it. So that's the best you can do. Come to the closest best that you can do in articulating your response, your proposal. And again, Arun would love to speak with you more on this after the presentation, after as and when you would like to. Please feel free to note down my number and reach out to me, and that's my email address. So that com is wrong; it's not there. It's just Vikas@bumblebee.consulting. I hope that that helped, Arun. Smita, how long do you think a person with no marketing and sales experience will take to learn these skills? Hard to say, Smita. Some people are just born with it. They have the gift of conversation, social persona. I was quite an introvert for a large part of my life. As growing up as a student, my family circumstances just pushed me into business development, looking at business, doing sales conversation, and at least when I come to sales, I've kind of picked up the social conversational angle of it to some extent. I don't think I surely think that there are a lot of people out there with much better social quality, social skills in terms of relationship building and all of that. But so it's hard to say. Personality types differ. It's all about thoughtful practice application. Yeah, I'm sorry I can't give you much more of an answer, but I have seen different people come from very technology-oriented background, and they start doing very well in sales and sales engagement as well. There, some companies combine marketing and sales roles, and some have these as separate roles. What do you recommend for startups? Again, hard to say what kind of startup here, Smita. Depending again on budgets, it's things like that. My gut is they should be separate. Marketing deals with at a very superficial level, trying to create interest, trying to call customers to the doorstep. But then it's a lot of it is conversational skill, and the challenge in today's time is conversation is broken. Right? It's not few conversations with continuity. They are broken in multiple small bits, and holding attention even for the salesperson to keep that in the mind with so many different situations and contexts, and then come back and keep that same rhythm, quality of engagement and impact. Really hard, really hard. So if you're going to throw marketing also in the lap of such a person, I personally don't think that's very advisable. If you have flexibility in the resources, split the roles. That would be my take. Asking question does apply, but usually the customers are not able to articulate the problem properly. Yes, Radhika, that problem also does exist. Again, if you have the ability to articulate for the customer, but be gentle and don't make the customer feel threatened with your knowledge. Customer should feel that you are helpful with the knowledge, not that, oh, so-and-so is so much more knowledgeable than me that the customer begins to feel threatened and insecure. Be careful about that. Okay. So I think I've covered most of the questions there. Sushma has triggered the feedback link, so we'll be much grateful if you could complete your feedback as well. Thank you all very much. I just want to let you know that those of you who are still here, I'm coming up with a workshop on 29th, and as I said, it's a very hands-on practice worksheet-driven workshop to create clarity in all these three areas. So dissonance 1, 2, and 3. We will talk through in context of your business, and you will have a chance to apply and practice these ideas. Please let me know by tomorrow, end of day, or even by Saturday. That's fine. It helps me prepare in advance. The workshop fees would be just 1,920 per person. And for those of you who are looking for additional mentoring guidance or any additional support in terms of revenue generation and sales, this slide gives you a little bit of an overview about how I can help. Sales conversation design. I could act as an outsourced or part-time chief sales officer for smaller organizations, or we also do a lot of workshops, sales and negotiations, proposal writing workshops, engaging presentations, virtual meetings, so on and so forth.
Yeah. Thank you, Vikas. I think, are we done? I
Yes.
think we can.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much for those of you who stuck it out. Sorry, Sushma, ball is in your court. I've done a lot of speaking. Thank you.
No, it was good actually. We can see the participants are replying. It was a nice session. Nice, and they're all. It was interactive, and you made it more interactive. And yeah,
thank you.
Thank you again. Yeah, for taking your time. It was taking your time and presenting us this. And those of you who are joining for the first time, like this recording will be available in our channel. IIMB Alumni webinar. So in YouTube, so you can check the recording maybe after a couple of days. Yeah, and yeah, thank you again for all of you for joining the session. Yeah,
I'm still available. Any of you want to call me on this number? Please feel free to call me right away if you want to talk. I've blocked my time on the evening, so not a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Vikas. Thank you all. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Sushma, for all your support and coordination on the session as well. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Vikas. Thank you. Bye. Yeah.